Okay. Hi and welcome everybody. I am Jessica Nip. I'm a photographer in Toronto, Canada, and over the next 4 Fridays, I'll be interviewing each of the judges who will be on the panel for our upcoming Accreditation event, which has a submission deadline of February 9th. If you're new here, Feedback Fridays are a fantastic way to get some feedback on your images from the judges, to get some insight into the judges' style, and it's a great way to improve your overall practice. So today I'll be speaking with Corrie Baker of Corrie Michael Photography. Hello.
Hello, everyone.
Corrie is an award-winning and published newborn photographer based out of Brantford, Ontario in Canada. And she's a mom of 4 kids and is a very busy person in addition to doing her newborn photography from her home. So welcome back, Corrie, and how are you doing?
Good. How about you?
I am doing well. We're all shut down. You're in Ontario with me, and
Yeah.
I'm shut down, you're shut down. How are you keeping
Yeah.
yourself busy right now, other than with 4 kids?
Well, the 4 kids do it pretty
Yes.
much.
Are they all in
And
school?
we're
Sorry,
yes.
are they all in virtual school right now, like school aged?
Yeah. So yep. So my oldest is actually in grade 12, which I actually hate to admit, but yeah. And then my daughter, she just became a teenager. She's in grade 8. So we have another one going to high school soon. And then an
Wow.
11 and an 8-year-old. So I'll just keep those as babies forever. I'm good with that.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, an 11, 8-year-old.
Um,
And then, oh my goodness, that's a wide range. Good for you. Well
yes.
done.
Yeah.
So have your clients been pretty understanding of the shutdown, not having work, not being able to work and shoot?
They have been. I think they're also mindful of the fact that they don't want to be here either in
Mhm.
this situation. So when we were able to reopen again, I have a long list of rules and COVID practices that take place, and I can say from experience and speaking with clients, they're really thankful that I have all those things put in place, and it makes them a lot more comfortable to come in to especially a home-based studio where there are 4 kids at 2 different schools. So
That's great. Okay, well, we will go right into it because I know people who have submitted their images are excited to hear some feedback. But right before we do,
yep.
can you share maybe a few things that you look for when you're presented with an image and you need to judge it? What are some things that you notice that you can share?
I think for me, one of the first things is overall impact, how it makes me feel, what I'm looking at. Just that first initial impact for me is it's like first impressions with people, right? It's going to be kind of the long standing, you're going to have to convince me otherwise afterwards. But I've always thought of imagery like reading a book. So you read it from one side to the other. But in photography, you start at the brightest spot on that image, and then you go through a story with that image and you kind of read through everything and you pay attention to all the little details. Lighting is one of my, I guess, biggest nitpicky things because I am a pretty moody newborn lit photographer.
Yes.
So yeah, I'm super picky about details on posing, hands, fingers, toes, where the cheeks are kind of like popping out of the bean bag, and especially like prop posing, bucket posing, that kind of thing, face positioning. So as I read through my story, those are all the things that I'm really, really looking at. So I guess that's it.
I think the members will appreciate what we think as nitpicky, but I think it's what you've learned over years of experience and
Yeah.
working in this field. Things that you wouldn't notice if you're just starting out, but if you've been working in it for years, I think those are details that are really important to perfect the form that we're trying to do.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I would have much appreciated someone just like fine tooth combing one of my images at the very beginning, because sometimes you don't see it. You're excited. When I do my mentoring and stuff, I always tell the students, focus on one thing. So even if you do, two model calls and you focus on just lighting, or the next one you focus on, just bucket posing and finger positioning and head posing, those things, if you spend an entire session, just every little thing, oh, the fingers, it will start to come a little bit, you kind of train yourself for it to become a little bit more natural.
Yes, and even listening to the feedback from judges over the past several Feedback Fridays, I'm starting to notice fingers. And I'm not a post photographer, but now even I'm looking for fingers when I'm looking at images.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to make sure I have my phone comments turned on here so I can see if there's anybody live and
Okay.
commenting and questioning so we can answer them live, but not yet. So we will move right into the images.
Okay.
And I just wanted to let people know that if we don't get to your image today, because I did um, prepare Corrie a few days in advance for this. So those who've sent in their images a little bit later than that, you may not see your image, but we'll get to them in the upcoming weeks. We have 3 more judges to interview. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen and then we will start.
I do
The
have the
first
images
one.
up on my large monitor. So if I'm looking away, it's just me
Yep.
looking at the image.
Yes, me too.
Okay.
Okay, so I think the first one is up now. Do you see it?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so let's hear what you have to say about this
So
tie.
I really love the monochromatic feel that this image has. It's an absolute favorite of mine. If anybody that follows me will attest to the fact that I love those monochromatic colors in images. So I really love that about this image. Great job by the maker there. Um, the The one thing for me is just that I feel like there are a few hot spots, a little overexposed in some areas. So I'm noticing on the bridge, like the little end bridge of the nose, the lip there, there's some shiny spots that could easily be fixed in editing. Not a huge deal at all. Just a little bit of a harsh lighting is what's causing that. There is whatever's propping up baby's head. There's a bean there that I see just beyond the fluff. So
Oh,
I would,
yes,
yeah,
the cream thing on the
yeah,
left. Yeah.
yep. So I mean, again, that's a really easy fix. I would probably just make sure I edited that out. Um, the skin tone for me is just a tiny little bit uneven. I'm not sure if the maker added a little bit of rose to the cheeks, but maybe pull that back a little bit, and the fingers kind of match that up with the facial skin tone. It looks like they're just a little bit redder. So again, really easy fix. There's one other thing. I think I do love the shadows. I do love the fall off light. And then I understand that this is a cropped kind of close up, but I would just crop it up a tiny little bit. The lower right hand corner, you can see baby's knee.
I didn't even see that. Now I do. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, if
Yeah.
it added to the picture for whatever reason you wanted to keep it there, I would completely understand that. I just think that it doesn't really add to it, and we're not really sure what that is. So I would just crop that up. And again, a really easy fix. It was a lovely image by this maker.
Regarding the hotspots, how would
Mhm.
you approach them? Would you, if you saw them in your camera while shooting, would you just continue shooting away knowing that you could fix it, or would you adjust your lighting? Do you
You
have any
know,
advice about that?
yeah. So I'm a natural light photographer. I'm gonna guess that this is not a naturally lit image. And so in I mean, light is light though. So it's how you maneuver it and how you manipulate it's all going to be the same. So I would say if I was photographing this and I noticed that some days in the winter and then you have the sun, you've got some really, really bright light coming in. Um, I do have a reflector that I would add the dark side to my window, so that would cut off light, or add another filter. Uh, or if it's a little bit even easier than that, I would go into my camera and I would uh, adjust my settings manually. I shoot manual, so I'm constantly adjusting my lighting, my ISO, my shutter, my f-stop. So I would do that. But I mean, if it is a studio lit image, it could just also be bringing that light down a tiny bit and not a whole lot of camera adjustments.
Okay, good advice. Oh, we have Tamarin Spender watching with us. She
Oh,
is,
hi, Cameron.
hello. She is also one of our judges in previous Accreditation events, and also Stephanie Robin is watching.
Oh,
Hello,
hi,
Stephanie.
Stephanie.
Okay, we'll move on to the next image.
Perfect.
Okay. This is beautiful.
Yes.
I wonder how they got the dress to fly up like that. I've
Yes.
tried using fans, but you need like a massive one or an assistant maybe.
An assistant, yes.
Yeah.
I do often recruit dads in maternity sessions for this job, and they feel really, really important when I tell them they do a great
Yes.
job. But I tell them a great job and they did better than the last one. So
So any comments about this one?
so for me, here we're looking at an image I would say upon looking at has great impact. Um, I I love mom's facial expressions. I love how gentle her eyes look and how unforced it is. That's where my eye goes first. The flow of the dress up near her face is where my eye goes next. So I love all of that, and I think the color selection of the dress and with the backdrop is really great. I think really great job on that initial impact from this maker. I would just say, again, being nitpicky because I hate being nitpicky, but
Mm-hmm.
um, there was a few things that if we changed would bring this image right to the very next level. The first would be the positioning of the floating dress. I don't know. It's hard for me to tell if it was added in afterwards
Right.
or if it's like a chiffon type of dress because on her hand you can see like it's see-through.
Yes.
Um, Regardless, if it was added in afterwards, I would say move it back because missing the mom's arm and elbow and hand and part of the belly takes away from that impact for me.
Yes, I
Uh,
agree.
okay. And then the next thing is her hand on top of her belly looks really, really tense. And based on what I can see from the one underneath, that also looks really, really tense to me. And um I always the way I get around this because moms are really nervous. They've got dads watching. Sometimes kids are running around pre-COVID times in your studio while this is taking place. Um, it's the same thing as I tell dads, relax your shoulders, but I always try and tell them ballerina hands. So I don't know if that kind of helps them understand just like a softer hand positioning, like relax your hand a little bit more. So I do tell them ballerina hands. I think that would make a huge difference in this image. The other thing
I
that
agree. Yeah.
yeah,
I
uh,
also think it's hard if they're trying to emphasize the shape of the belly by holding the fabric.
yes,
I've found in the past it's hard for the mom to hold the fabric and relax the hands at the same time, but I like
yep,
that tip of the ballerina hands.
yep. And even that material that is gathered at the front, if you just went in behind mom, sometimes I'll just pull that fabric in behind and a clip or like a little tiny elastic and elastic it. That'll help her as well, not have to hold the fabric or get or have the fabric gathering there. The one last thing for me is maybe not the last thing, but
Mhm.
I feel as though she's a bit too close to the backdrop for me. So again,
Mhm.
on first in this initial impact, I'm looking at her face, I'm looking at the top of the dress, and then my eye starts going to these other things. And the first place my eye goes to afterwards is the floral backdrop, not really the belly where it should go. So I would say, if I'm guessing, this is probably a very small studio space. I'm also guessing that um, based on the lighting, we've got some really heavy fall off light with a very bright light in front. So I'm guessing small studio space, um, and maybe just turn down that light a little bit and pull mom forward just a tiny bit. I just get really distracted from how close she is to the backdrop and the flowers on there.
Mhm.
And then maybe just pull down, like you can use a gradient in Photoshop or Lightroom where you would just pull that gradient across the front of the image and just reduce how bright that is to match up with the rest of the image. But outside of those really tiny little things, I love this image. Great job. Initial impact was great. Wonderful.
It is beautiful. I have another tip for if, in case it's the background that was, she's that close in because the background wasn't very wide. If you wanted to move the subject a little further, you could use a longer lens so you could compress the background and you don't have to be too close to the subject, and the subject doesn't have to be that close to the background. You could try
Yep.
that if you have a small studio, if you have the space
Yeah. Yep.
to go back. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. Before we do, we have a question from Gina who says, hi ladies, thanks for the opportunity. And question, can you mention if each photo would be passable for accreditation? So I know for accreditation, there is a whole panel of judges, and you would need the majority of the judges. Actually, I think you need all of the judges to accept an image in order for it to be accepted. So for this purpose of Feedback Friday, we're just providing the feedback, and we'll leave the actual judging to the actual accreditation event. But if we can say that, I'll leave that to Stephanie to maybe give advice on that for future Feedback Fridays, if we can ask the judges if they would accept or not. But I don't want to put Corrie on the spot right now. Okay, so I'll move on to the next one. See. Oh, oops. Okay, let's go with this one.
I really love the concept and the creativity the creator was after in this image. Being unique with newborn images is really a guilty pleasure of mine for sure. So I really love the effort of the creativity here. I would just say this image for me is just a little too flat. So I definitely, because as you look at it, it's almost hard to tell where exactly the light's coming from, and directional light in newborn photography and any photography really is the most impactful. So I would definitely, I don't know if it was lightened in Photoshop or not, but just pull that down a tiny bit.
So by flat lighting, for any new members, can you maybe explain that a little bit more? Do you mean like the light and the shadow, the difference? And
Yes. So in a flat lit image, the lighting is the same across the entire image. So right side of baby's face is very close to left side of baby's face. Right side of image is very close to left side of image. And what you really want is some shadows falling along the opposite side of your light. So if your light was coming from the right in this image, you would want there to be shadows along the left side of baby's face and the left side of the image. It also, when not particularly this image, but when you light bum up poses, that also gives you all those roly goodnesses that you can see so much better in a baby. And the toes, like the shadows of the toes, it just brings all the features out way more than a flat lit image. I don't
got
know
it.
if that helped or answered the
I hope
question, but
so. Yeah. And anything else about this image that you wanted to say? Because I think I interrupted you. Sorry
no,
about
that's
that.
okay. I love the posing and the wrap on this one. I always, when I'm doing my own mentoring, I always say everything with intention. So if you're going to put baby's hands around something, make sure you put their hands around exactly the way you want them, or a wrap exactly the way you want them. So I really love the intentional bow tie of the bonnet here. I think that's a great job. I love that. I love the intentional hand placement. I believe it's on a bunny. One of my rules is 10 fingers, 10 toes. So I would really love to be able to see baby's other hand wrapped around here as well. Very, very nitpicky. I would probably take that wrap and tuck it over top of the bottom foot just for clean it up kind of purposes. And that I would probably do that. I would also say that there's a little bit too much negative space for me on the left side of the image. So, and I understand why she did it. She did it. I understand that they did it so that they can include all of their leaves in this crop. So my suggestion would be to just pull down all the leaves to make sure they're a little bit closer to baby so that you can get your perfect crop, or in Photoshop, again, just add that in and add more to the right than the left.
Yes, I
Because you're gonna,
find it really close to the edges, the leaves, the top
yeah,
ones as
yeah,
well,
yeah.
especially.
And the same thing goes back to reading a picture like you would read a book. You're going to start where the light comes in and go across. And there's nothing that's really of value to the far left and adding that negative space. So you more want it to the right to add to the story of the image.
Okay, thank you for that. We'll move to the next one.
I love this baby.
It's very spring-like.
Yes, this
Yeah.
baby, I loved looking at this image. I love her hair, I love her face, her little lips. I love everything about it. I love the color selection by the creator.
Yes.
I absolutely love how intentional that holding of the heart looks to me. I think that's wonderful. I love that so much. I love how intentional the back wrap goes over her elbow and comes along the foot. It looks to me like maybe the maker struggled a little bit with getting that hand wrapped around the cheek.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say I would definitely work on that. If I would take this as a safe shot and then maybe go in and work on that a little bit before I took my final image. One of the things that might help the maker with this would be to take that wrap along the front and pull it up over the elbow a little bit. So you have less control of where the hand's going to be. You can kind of manipulate baby a little bit better than that. This also might have to be something done underneath of her beanbag floral wrap there, and like in the stuffing. So
Right.
she might have
Mm-hmm.
to stuff to hold baby's hand to be wrapped a little bit more around her cheek so that that looks a little bit more intentional.
Right.
Um, Again,
This is, yeah.
so go ahead.
So this is so that the hand and the fingers would be, you can help them be resting against the cheek more instead of
So it
kind of
looks like she's
falling. Mm-hmm.
holding her cheek instead of, it's kind
Mm-hmm.
of like with the froggy
Yeah.
pose, you want them holding the cheek and not out. So
Right.
yeah, again, just so it looks more like she's holding her cheek and that her hand's not there. Like you want her hand to look like you put it there purposefully. So
Mm-hmm.
I would just say work a little bit on that for me. Very nitpicky thing. Again, it's a beautiful image. Mom is going to love this. It's just me being things that I would say in an accreditation.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the one other thing for me is the headband. If we move that closer to the front of the picture so that we were looking less at the actual band and more at the floral part, I think that would add to it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, at the back of the image, this is a very bright image for me as well. I would maybe pull it down and give a little bit more fall off light. But at the back of the image, you notice like my eye almost goes directly to that back, the leg that's in
Yes, me
front
too.
because
Yes.
it's very bright. So
Mm-hmm.
two things can help with this. Um, and it kind of alleviates two problems. One problem for me is that foot is way too close to baby's face. So it looks very large in comparison to probably what it actually is. So I would switch the legs. I would take the leg that's on the bottom and put it on the top, and the leg on the top and put it on the bottom. And your shadows are naturally going to look a little bit better, and it'll just sharpen up that image on the leg area and wrapping.
That's a wonderful tip. I love that. Okay. So thank you for that. And we'll move on to the next one. I think this might, oh no, this is the second last one for today.
Yep.
Okay.
So great job. I love bucket images. I'm a sucker for the bucket and potato. So I love this. Beautiful coloring. I love the textures put in by the creator. I love the hand placement. It looks very intentional to me. I love that. I would maybe just pop. Sometimes when I have babies in buckets, I just kind of take my one finger and pull the chin out a little bit more. So I might just do that so it's sitting on top of the hands a little bit more so he doesn't look so squished. The wrap
Mhm.
job looks amazing in there.
I see what you mean. So you like the face to be a little more forward over the hand.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Mhm.
so I do these poses. If I find even a bum up pose where the cheek is buried, I just take my one little finger and pull the cheek out just the tiniest little bit and then let it go back down. And it's just a matter of how you've laid the baby in there or on a bean bag and just needs to be pulled out the tiniest little bit. So that's normally what I do, just like one little finger in there and pull it out a tiny bit.
Mhm. And would this image typically be done as a composite for you or
I have
um
that, yeah, I have that on my on my things to talk about just for safety purposes.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely any kind of, because this really ultimately is the same as a potato, except for um it's in a different venue,
Mm-hmm.
really.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely would make sure there's hands on babies at all times and complete this as a composite, especially um how baby is sitting so upright in this image.
Right. And I
Uh,
think for that, if this maker is submitting this image for accreditation, you would need to submit the behind the scenes uh, photo showing that the baby was supported.
yes.
Mhm.
Yep. Um, I would also suggest to the maker that because this isn't your typical bucket pose that you would use where baby is in front of the bucket and sitting in the bucket, really pay attention to lighting and angles. So if baby's head might have just been tilted a little bit more, like top of the head to the left of the image, because you want the light to flow down the baby's nose, and it isn't completely doing that in this image. So just the slight tilt of a head, and then really play around with angles in this type of image for me. You can get some really beautiful moody images by, what I always say when I do my mentoring is, come over to the dark side and
Mhm.
shoot. So coming to the dark side, shooting from that angle, you can get some really beautiful moody images, plus some oh my gosh, I'm having a brain toot.
That's okay.
Macros. So yeah, you can get some really lovely macros from that side and angle, especially in some of these types of poses.
Oh, yes. Well, thank you to this maker. She responded in the group saying that yes, it was a composite. So if submitting, you just send that behind the scenes picture to the judges so that they can make sure that, well, so that they can see it.
Yes, and great job.
Yeah, great job. I love the colors. I think this would look great in any little boy's room.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the natural tones with the navy are one of my favorites. Okay, let's move on to the next one. And this one is our last for the day.
Yes. Again, I love the pink. I really love this baby too. Even though she looks a little grumpy about it. But
I love that. I wonder
I
if that's her
know.
natural
Uh,
resting face.
I kind of sometimes love when babies look grumpy and moms are like, "Oh, I wish he'd get his grumpy face off." And I'm like, it's all part of who they are, right?
Yes.
But I love the beautiful pink color. I love the coordination of the outfit and the prop. I think it's a great combo all the way around. I love how intentional that little heart is placed, and that hand is just snuggling that heart so perfectly. That's great. Um, if
It
I
really
were,
is it
yeah,
really is snuggling the heart perfectly. That's a
she
great way to say it. Mhm.
Yeah, she did a wonderful job. I love how intentional that foot placement is back there. That's gorgeous. It gives me gives me a happy feeling.
Mhm.
If I were to critique and have like a few things to say, again, I would say baby's head tilted more towards the bottom of the image, so just tilting that chin down a bit more and pulling that cheek out a tiny little bit more. While you're there, you can always pull that hand out so that you can see, when in these types of poses like bum up or side laying, I always say at least 2 to 3 of the fingers. If I can see those, then that makes me really happy. Also, that whatever's posed underneath of the baby for her face, this also might help pulling that cheek out a bit. Is there's a large bump there that's a little distracting, so I would push that um posing bean or whatever is underneath there. I would take that and push that back a little bit as well, um just to get that distraction out of the way. um the only other thing would be, for me, again, the lighting is a little bit bright. Pull down your, like, your highlights and get some nice fall off light and a little bit more shadows. And the leg on the bottom looks very dark in comparison to everything else, like baby skin tone wise. So
Yes.
I would definitely take a little bit of time and effort and lighten that up a bit and try and get it to match the rest of baby's skin tone. Also, the little bit of the arm that's underneath of her cheek, I would try and take some time and effort to do that as well.
That is amazing that you noticed that. I did not see the darker leg until now, and now I cannot unsee it. So, yeah, that's why she's an expert judge, everybody. All right, so hopefully all our makers here got some great advice.
Great job by everyone. They look
Yes.
really fantastic.
When I sent these over to Corey, I told her I don't know what we're gonna say about these. They're amazing, but there's always something to work on. So thank you to these makers for submitting these beautiful images. Hopefully you got some great information and next steps for improving your images going forward. And we are going to wrap up here with Corey. Before I wrap up, I just want to make sure that you all know her social media addresses. So she's at corriemichaelphotography.ca. She's on Facebook under Corrie Michael Photography. And I wasn't sure if you're on Instagram. I know you have an account.
Yes, I believe it's C Michael Photography
Yes,
9 because somebody else had my name or something
yes,
weird. So,
yes. But I think your website and Facebook seem to be where you are often. So you
yes.
can find her there. So to wrap up, I've interviewed Corrie before, and I must have missed this little tidbit about her, and that is that she used to be a prop vendor. So I wanted to ask her about that because that is very interesting, a very interesting little known fact.
So it's actually a really the whole journey, my photography journey is kind of a funny story. So I am a graduate from U Waterloo with a Bachelor of Arts. And then I did my HR management at Mohawk College and was an HR manager when I left with my daughter, who's my second number two baby. So I knew I didn't want to go back because it was really awful being an HR manager. I'm not going to lie. So for all of
Mhm.
you out there that are hearing this, I don't know how you do it. So I started a daycare
Oh, wow.
because yes. So I also did my volunteer teaching when I was at U Waterloo. Possibility of being a teacher was in the lines. I love kids, love kids. So I said to my husband, if I can get enough clients and start up a daycare, I don't want to go back. And he's always been very supportive, and we knew we wanted to have more kids. So that's what we did. Along came a photographer that moved to Brantford from Stratford. Her name is McCarthy Photography, and she became one of my daycare clients. And while the babies were sleeping, I would knit and make. Well, actually, she did this whole blog. It was actually funny. I didn't know my sitter was a knitter.
Okay.
And she's like, "Oh my gosh, can you make me some of this stuff so I don't have to keep buying it?" So I said, "Sure." So when the babies were sleeping, I would knit and make headbands, and
Wow.
it like rolled into this whole thing. And she's my mentor. She's the one that mentored me for newborn photography. And I haven't talked to her. She moved back to
Okay.
London and she went back to school herself, so I'm not sure if she's 100% doing photography anymore,
Mhm.
but that's the
What a story. Do you still make your own props? So in all your photo
yeah.
shoots, are most of the props yours that you've created? That I mean, the clients must
Um,
love that. And
not
do you take custom orders from clients?
some do you know what? Sometimes I get going on this ball of wool and I'm like, "Oh, this hat's so pretty." And then I make another one and I make another one. So I have a little bin of newborn bonnet. So if I get a feeling from mom, my mom says, "Oh my gosh, I love that color so much." I normally like that's one of my gifts that I give to clients. I'll gift
Oh,
them a bonnet from
wonderful.
their session or whatever. So
Oh,
yeah,
that's
I
so
love doing
sweet.
it.
Oh, that's amazing. And do you do this for your own, just for your own portraits, or do you have a store or online
So
shop?
I've just started back with some knitting stuff because I used to crochet. And so I have a store that's called the Blushing Fox Boutique.
Okay.
So yeah, so I do some knitted stuff out of there. It's not large. I don't push myself. Only, I'll only make and then sell what I have made. I don't sit down well. So even when I'm watching TV, I have
Mhm.
to be, my hands have to be moving. So it's my thing. So I knit a lot while I watch TV.
Oh, that's awesome. So if we check out the Blushing Fox Boutique, would we find you somewhere on the interwebs?
Yeah.
You would. Okay, so
Yeah.
everybody go check it out. Well, thank you so much, Corrie. It was such an honor having you critique these images and being a guest and taking time out of your Friday to talk to us.
Oh my gosh, thank you
Love
guys
having
so
you.
much. I love being here, and this is my passion out of everything that I've ever done. So I love any kind of help that, people need. I love pushing them to meet their goals. So I'm really happy to be here and be a judge as well.
And thank you everyone for watching. If you've missed anything, this will live on the Facebook page, I think indefinitely until the owners remove it. So yeah, well, I'll see you next week. And next week we have Bianca Hubble on Friday. So I'm a little nervous about that one. So we'll see you soon. Thank you very much.